Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Miracle Network's Wednesday meditation. I'm so glad you're all here to share this time together. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to click the subscribe button below to receive updates and notifications. Today we're joined by Ken Gorman, who will lead us in meditation, and then we have 20 minutes of silence. After that, we're going to open it up for sharing. We end at 10:45. Over to you, Ken.
Thank you, Dan. I'd just like to do a reading, lesson 63, just to usher us into meditation. It says, the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. How holy are you who have the power to bring peace to every mind? How blessed are you who can learn to recognize the means for letting this be done through you? What purpose could you have that would bring you greater happiness? You are indeed the light of the world with such a function. The Son of God looks to you for his redemption. It is yours to give him, for it belongs to you. Accept no trivial purpose or meaningless desire in its place, or you will forget your function and leave the Son of God in hell. This is no idle request that is being asked of you. You are being asked to accept salvation that it may be yours to give.
Open your eyes and come back into the room. We have 20 minutes left for sharing. If you'd like to share, raise your hand and I'll invite you to take yourself off mute. Sandy.
Thanks, Ken, for that beautiful reminder. I'm just feeling really, really peaceful right now, which is gorgeous. And it's, reminding me that I need to remain in that peace as much as possible to be able to give it. I can't give it when I don't have it myself. And, we get so caught up in life sometimes that it's so important to take these moments to sort of come back and center again so that we can that good place of being the love and the light of the world. So thank you for that reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. One thing that helped me was something Robert and Mary at Pathways talked about. Our true nature is peace. That's what we're touching into. So we're never not at peace. We can't be. It's only our perception of it, and that helped me. It's the same concept of we're already it. I remember when I got into Buddhism and it said, you're already enlightened, you're already everything you're ever going to be, but it's obscured. And so the spiritual practice is the unobscuring process, but what's there didn't change. Versus sometimes in Christianity, you get a feeling of evolution. I'm a sinner. I need to evolve into something different. This is different. So therefore, if I know that peace is what I am, now the ego will try and convince me, no, you've lost your peace, you terrible person, you're a terrible practitioner, because that's its game. But if I know that actually I just rest in what I am, and anything telling me differently is not telling me the truth. I think that's what forgiveness is really all about, is about allowing space for things to be as they are. Judgment's the opposite of forgiveness, right? When we actually judge and say, this is something. Well, if we remove that judgment and let things be, very Eckhart Tolle, right? Present moment. Why does the present moment work? Because it's perfect as it is. It needs no fixing. So we need no fixing. We just need to be. That's why these meditations are so important.
Yeah.
But the ego picks up on that and then judges and says, "Oh, I'm not at peace. I'm not doing my instructions correctly." No, actually, we're always at peace. It's just a perception. That helped me a lot. That's
yeah, it's a lovely. Coming from a completely different angle, and that feels really good. Thank you.
Yeah, Robert and Mary used always to say, "Let's go back to peace," because it was always there to go back to.
Who would like to share? Norman.
Yes, thank you very much. I missed a bit earlier on getting connected. So I'm not too sure if this is relevant or not. But when I started to reflect things, I was watching a horror movie last night, and after it was over, it struck me that the news that I'd watched earlier that day was more horrible than the horror story. You switch the horror story off, but you can't really switch the outside world off. But I suddenly realized that my ego, jumps in every time there's a little bit of peace. And just quite happily, the fact that if I dwell too much on it, oh, you're watching a horror movie and you're saying the word is worse than the horror movie, and it dwells on it. But the whole thing I got out of it was, I'll see, don't despair. was the message, just really, do not despair. See what the world looks like when you're ready. So it was a sort of a nice way to end it. Do not despair. See what the world looks like when you're good and ready. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a Buddhist teacher, and I remember saying the example I used. I lived in the country, but I took the train into the city, and I said, "Gosh, it's amazing how I see the contrast of being in the city, and how unpeaceful it is versus it's so peaceful in the country." And she said to me, "What you need to learn is those are identical. They're all projections of mind." And so we see the horror movie, we see the romantic comedy, they're all films. And an ego tries to trap us into the good stories and say, no, that one's okay, but the news isn't, and all this. But it's all being developed, it's just like it's all coming from the same mechanism. When you watch the television, the horror movie and the rom-com and the comedy movie, all from the same television, it's the same. Whereas the truth is down lower. It's in the heart, right? We have two centers of consciousness, right? The heart and the head. And the head is creating all these movies, good movie, bad movie, whatever. And the ego doesn't care what movie we're mesmerized with. Because then but the minute we let go of the movie making mechanism, which meditation is it's why Buddha was so big on it. And the Course has a lot of them. We suddenly settle into an awareness in our heart, that second center of consciousness, which is only a peace. The heart it knows nothing else other than peace. That's why you can't ever not be at peace. Your heart always is. It's just a matter of where we're putting our focus. And so it's important to know that that's always there. And forgiveness is really about letting go of our attachment to what the movie's doing, right? And what attaches us to it is the judgment. If we could just let it be. That's why Eckhart Tolle is so much in the present moment, just let things be, because I'm not reaching in and trying to judge them, good, bad, this, that, resist, attach. No, I'll just let it come and go and come and go. And then I have this sense underneath of the peace that I am, and Holy Spirit is there. That's the idea for me anyway. These are still, because we're using the English language, it's still a story, right? But that's what helped. That was what was helpful for me. But
Thank you.
Who would like to share?
one other thing I'm inspired to say, Dan, for me, the way I relate to it, everybody, like on this caller who studies, we're all want to try and do the right thing by the Course in Miracles and all that. And my reading of it is we will all, or at least me, let me talk about myself, that I will fail at this. Because the I that's trying to do it is incapable of it. But by asking the Holy Spirit, and this is in one of the best sections in the Course, and this is the Happy Dream section. And it talks about this is the Holy Spirit's job. He is the strength, not mine, not mine will, but thine will be done. All that kind of stuff of relying on whatever, however you relate to the higher power or God that does all this. And my efforts will fail. I will not stay in peace. I will not forgive. I will not do any of this. I'll try because I want to love the course, all that. But what I can do is ask, and what I can do is create spaces through meditation so the Holy Spirit can do whatever he's going to do us and through his strength. And that's true humility. I think the opposite of humility is arrogance, and that somehow in a very subtle way, arrogantly, we think we can read this and do it. I'm to the point I can't. I know that after years of trying, that somehow the Holy Spirit is lifting us. And the Course everywhere says this. It's Holy Spirit's job. The Happy Dream section covers that. Don't try and do it's the Holy Spirit's job. So that's the other thing, because a lot of this can feel very overwhelming. So that's one thing that's helped me, is a lot of spiritual processes, just endeavoring for more and more genuine surrender, more and more genuine dependence on the Holy Spirit, and not trying to do things myself. And there's so many subtle ways the ego tries to thwart that, and it's working with that. But anyway, that's it.
Thanks, Ken. Who'd like to share? I'll jump in. I'm so grateful to have Holy Spirit in my mind, and I've been trying to pause regularly and leave the world and just center in peace and listen to what guidance comes. Just live a life, of guidance, and it's a slow process, but it's getting better as I put that into my life more often. I'm done.
A little willingness, right?
Yeah. Who'd like to share? Teresa.
Thank you, Ken. It's lovely to see you again. I've been thinking about today's lesson, which is there is no love but God's, and I read it through this morning. And any one of the lessons, I guess, when you say them, can help me quieten a little, go into that lovely quiet center. And the mind is so separate, so this separate identity, this separate personality, all these other separate personalities that I can see and, deal with and all of that. But when I remember that there is no love but God's. It's not like one is better than the other, or anything. I think you actually mentioned this as well. There's so the mind just does so many comparisons the whole time, and just to sink back into this, there's no specialness, or specially good, specially bad, special anything. That God's love is absolutely everywhere, and I also thought that if you have a child who is dreaming all these separate stories, then as the parent, you're not going to judge the child at all. You mentioned about judgment. You're just going to love your child, regardless of whatever it's dreaming. So they were some of the thoughts I had with today's lesson. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things meditation teaches you. I started meditation in Buddhism, and they'll just get you to label it thinking. Good thought, bad thought, just story, that story. And after you do that for hours and hours, hundreds of hours, it's pretty painful in the beginning. You start to, I remember there were that visible detachment of my awareness from the actual thinking. I remember that it was like a detachment, that these two were not the same, and that my thinking mind was just a thinking machine. And then you enter the Course. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world, and you realize we don't have to take our thinking particularly seriously, unless we're taking it seriously. Then that's a problem. But just the thinking itself isn't. It's interesting, isn't it? But the ego desperately wants us to take it seriously. But we can learn to ignore it. Ignoring is like one of the most powerful words, spiritual words. I can just ignore it and go back to my heart, go back to Holy Spirit.
Would like to share. Ken, when you have a fear thought, do you ignore it, or do you give it to Holy Spirit for healing? What do you do?
It's a great question, and I want to say the answer is both. You got to be careful ignoring these things are all taste like chicken, right? So ignoring is sort of a way of labeling it thinking or not taking it too seriously. But on the other hand, we have a lot of powerful stuff that comes up, and you can be overwhelmed by it. Ego can actually control you by not. It's particularly very fearful thoughts or very deep-seated things. And I think it's always important to have the idea that Holy Spirit is actually doing the correcting. And so it's kind of both, that I don't have to pay attention to my thinking on one hand. On the other hand, I also recognize it as dangerous. And it's a bit like being an alcoholic. I don't have to pay attention to alcohol ads. I can walk down the aisle in the grocery store, and I don't have to pay attention to all the Jack Daniels and all that on the shelf. I can ignore it. On the one hand, on the other hand, it's lethal to me as an alcoholic if it were to get a hold of me. And so I have to rely on God to not have that happen. So it's sort of both. So we have the sense that Holy Spirit is doing the correcting and keeping all these, because a lot of the thinking is unconscious. You can't be aware of it all the time. So you have to have the sense that Holy Spirit is managing this and taking you on the journey you need to be taken on. But on the other hand, the ignoring it part means I don't have to reach in and do anything with it. That's why it's the best word we came up with. It's not perfect, but it's sort of like ignore kind of captures it's there and I know it, but I don't have to do anything with it. That's really what that's getting at. And Holy Spirit will do something with it, and I can move on. And that way I don't create any energy with it. I don't, because the minute I resist it, I create more energy with it. The minute I try and figure it out, I create more energy. The minute I even throw a course quote at it, well, the course says this isn't real. Well, now I've made it real because I need a course quote. Ignoring just takes the energy away from it. I'm not going to pay, just like the alcoholic walking down the supermarket aisle. I'm just not going to look at this. I know it's there, but I'm just going to walk past it. Simultaneously, I know this is dangerous for me because I'm an egoholic, and I can be drugged right back in by a certain kind of thought. And so I'm constantly going back to Holy Spirit and relying on Him for strength. And so how's that for a long answer?
Very helpful. Thank you, Ken. Would like to share? Norman, you're put yourself on mute.
Yes, I just like the way you said the Holy Spirit will manage it. I thought that was brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, the course is clear on that. Not only will He, we have to, any attempts for us to do His job is just arrogance. And submission and humility is super important. And realizing that we do need to be lifted up. We do need to be carried. If you, again, back to the alcoholic example, if you go into the 12 steps, step 1 is I'm powerless. I've tried to stop drinking for years and I can't. Step 2 is there's a power greater than me. And step 3 is I'm going to let this power now solve this problem. And that's how people get sober in AA. I think we're kind of the same. It's egoholism. It's this idea that we are being carried. That's where the real torque is. And it's knowing that and constantly relying on that and not ourselves. But something like that. Everybody internalizes it differently, but that's very helpful for me. And my ego is constantly spiritual ego is constantly wanting to think, look at me, I'm doing this. Instead of saying, no, look at me, I'm completely dependent all the time on Holy Spirit to stay spiritually sober.
Okay, thanks, Ken. We've come to the end of our time. That was wonderful. And take yourself off mute. Show your appreciation to Ken.
Thank you very much, Ken. That was wonderful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.